Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very glad to welcome you to the Institute of World Politics this afternoon and to our program, Beyond Crisis Management in the Middle East, Peace and Stability in the Post-2015.
We can't hear.
I'm very glad that to report that this event is made possible in part by the United Nations Association of the National Capital Area. The keynote speaker for the first part of our program is Dr. Shelly Pitterman, a deeply experienced United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees official. He has served in Sudan, Somalia, Switzerland, Guinea, Burundi, and Kenya. His PhD is from Northwestern University. His undergraduate degree is from Brandeis. Without further ado, Dr. Pitterman, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure. It's been a long time since anybody called me doctor. In fact, nobody's ever called me doctor. Thank you very much for inviting me to come to this prestigious event at the Institute of World Politics. It's my first visit, and really it's an honor and a pleasure to be here, and also to be joined by such friendly faces, some of whom I know from our work on refugee issues, so I'm really very pleased to be here. There is a humanitarian mega crisis happening in Syria and Iraq. Sounds a little bit a perfect storm that has regional and broader international security implications. We read about it every day in the newspapers and the situation reports from the field. The numbers of refugees and displaced persons has risen to unprecedented levels. The number of people killed, the brutality of the wars, killing by knives and chemical weapons, the devastation of infrastructure, roads, residences, hospitals, and especially the targeting of doctors, the loss of educational opportunities for a whole generation of children, the violence against women and children, the abuse of traffickers, the spread of xenophobia, the destruction of cultural heritage, even today as we meet, the attacks on humanitarian workers, in particular the courageous first responders of the Red Cross. The countries hosting Syrian refugees in the Middle East have demonstrated remarkable generosity. They've spent millions to provide services and safety. Turkey now hosts the largest number of refugees in the world. Lebanon has the highest per capita ratio of refugees in the world. Syria and Iraq have among the largest numbers of displaced persons in the world. The majority of the refugees are not in camps. They're living with families, renting, and yes, many are in terrible substandard conditions as well. The host governments have received the refugees in their national schools and health centers. Some refugees now have the right to work. The governments are collaborating well with international agencies and with non-governmental organizations as well. National NGOs play an instrumental role in service delivery. The humanitarian needs grow. The appeals reach unprecedented levels. More money is committed, but it's not enough to keep up. There is some diversification of the donor base, but the bulk of the funding is still American and European. UNHCR and its partners reach more people and provide more assistance, but still more are being left behind. The resources the refugees brought with them, after all, many of the refugees had businesses, professions, property. These resources are being depleted. There's now more evidence of poverty and increased vulnerability among refugee populations, notwithstanding everything that we are doing. The borders are more controlled than ever before, and there's an important secondary migration of refugees toward Europe, in particular, one that is fraught with unknowns and dangers of unsafe sea travel and smuggling. There's a growing realization that the situation cannot be fixed, or perhaps even contained, by just traditional humanitarian responses. The emergency response has to happen, of course, when thousands of people cross a border or a bridge like today to seek some security from the war. But the situation in the Syrian-Iraq mega-crisis is one of protracted emergency, and I fear the same prevails in Yemen and Libya. There has to be a multidimensional response that takes into account the situation still so precarious of the large numbers who arrived a couple of years ago, and those who arrived more recently, as well as the new waves of displacement. UNHCR and the international community introduced an innovative framework for appeals called the Refugee Response and Resilience Plan, the 3RP, which incorporates a development dimension and also dedicated chapters prepared by the host governments. Coupled with the OCHA-coordinated appeals for assistance to the internally displaced, billions of dollars are being sought, but as I mentioned, even the increased levels of humanitarian funding have not kept pace with increased needs. Can we be contented to receive only half of what we appealed for, given the circumstances? The funding and programmatic gaps that challenge us today, and which will only become exacerbated tomorrow, can be addressed in part by the infusion of development planning and funding from the very outset of a forced displacement. This will require important shifts in the approaches of bilateral development agencies and international financial institutions. There are some promising steps being taken by the World Bank, for example, which need more backing and institutional framing. A copy of the World Bank report on Lebanon is outside, as you saw. The governments which have provided such generous humanitarian support over the years, and some which have not, will need to see that it serves the collective good to ensure that those frontline states providing asylum to hundreds of thousands of refugees are offered additional help to sustain, if not grow, their economies and to maintain a peaceful environment for asylum in the face of nearby threats that pose significant risks to regional and international security. One day there will be political solutions that will allow the refugees and displaced persons to return and to rebuild their homes. Even if there are no signs now that the conflicts will end soon, a conference like this, focused on peace building and recovery, can never be too early. So I wish you good luck in your deliberations and hope that your conclusions and recommendations are given the necessary attention that they deserve. Thank you very much.